Well, a warm welcome to everybody at the 50th meeting of Soteria today at Sunday, the 20th of October, 2024. And today there is the second part of the Baker's Dozen, which we did 2 months ago. The last 6 poems, and it will be shown why I called it a Baker's Dozen, because one of the poems is actually in German and has a translation, so you can regard it as 6 poems or 7 poems, depending on your point of view, and that's why it's called the Baker's Dozen. I didn't reveal that last time because we didn't get to the poem, but I think I can say that now. And for those who haven't been here before, very warm welcome to you. And we do read, unless you specifically say that you don't want to read, and we'll ask people to read a poem. I shan't say who wrote the poem. I shan't say what the name of the poem is. It might be interesting for you to ask yourself, do I know this poem? Have I ever heard it? But to give your honest reactions to it, we'll talk about it. And yes, at the end, I will say, well, at the end of each discussion, I will say who the poet is. And yeah, so over to the first poem.
All right, I shall share it. Now, I think the last, we got up to 6, didn't we, Michael?
We did. So that this one we had, that was the last one we had, and Horses on the Camargue is the first of the, yeah. And who would like to read? Maybe Michael, would you like to read this one?
Horses on the Camargue. In the gray wastes of dread, the haunt of shattered gulls, where nothing moves, but in a shroud of silence like the dead, I heard a sudden harmony of hooves, and turning saw afar 100 snowy horses unconfined, the silver runaways of Neptune's car, racing, spray curled like waves before the wind, son of the Mistral, fleet as him with whose strong gusts they loved to flee, who shod the flying thunders on their feet and plumed them with the snortings of the sea. Theirs is no earthly breed, who only haunts the verges of the earth, and only on the sea's salt herbage feed. Surely the great white breakers gave them birth. For when for years a slave, a horse of the Camargue in alien lands, should catch some far-off fragrance of the wave carried far inland from his native sands. Many have told the tale of how in fury, foaming at the rain, he hurls his rider, and with lifted tail, with coal red eyes and cataracting mane, heading his course for home, though 60 foreign leagues before him sweep, will never rest until he breathes the foam and hears the native thunder of the deep. And when the great gusts rise and lash their anger on these arid coasts, when the sacred gulls career with mournful cries and whirl across the waste like driven ghosts, when hail and fire converge, the only souls to which they strike no pain are the white-crested fillies of the surge and the white horses of the windy plain. Then, in their strength and pride, the stallions of the wilderness rejoice. They feel their master's trident in their side, and high and shrill they answer to his voice. With white tails smoking free, long streaming manes and arching necks, they show their kinship to the sisters of the sea, and forward hurl their thunderbolts of snow. Still out of hardship bred, spirits of power and beauty and delight have ever on such frugal pastures fed, and loved to course with tempests through the night.
Thank you. Any reaction, any recognition, any reactions to that?
It's very familiar, but it's...
I found it absolute delight, very powerful.
I thought you'd like it. Yes, I thought you'd like it.
And I was perplexed as to why it's not crossed my attention before. I thought it was a wonderful poem. Have you known it for many years, Mike, or is it a poem that you found by your own diligence?
Well, I'm so old, I don't know what you mean by many years, but I've known it for at least 25 years, yes.
And had you found it yourself by following the work of a poet you interested in, or it was part of?
I was actually reminded of it, I think, by reading a biography of the particular poet.
Yeah, I like it very much. I like it very much, and it just seems a celebration of that primal power and splendor that such animals can have. I didn't take, I think, much more philosophically from it, but I found it beautifully constructed, a really fine piece of work in poetic construction. Well, Heward, what did you think? Did you enjoy it?
I quite enjoyed it. I found it a bit 19th century.
Is that an approbation?
Oh, let me just please put it into the same as last time, but some people weren't here. All the poems were written after the end of the First World War.
Yeah.
So just wanted to put that in, that nobody, because that, not that somebody says, oh, it sounds like Wordsworth or something. I mean, which it obviously doesn't.
It didn't seem to me fully 20th century in its nature, and to some extent, therefore, although I accept what Stead is saying about the energy and the potency of the primordial wind and so on and so forth of it, I found it a bit romanticized. So, as it were,
Louise, what did you?
70% approbation.
Okay. Well, from you, that's
high praise from you, actually. Yeah.
How did you find it, Louise?
Oh, I liked it. I've never read it before. I thought it was very good. Yes. Very vivid description.
Yeah, it made me think what the source of it was, whether the poet had seen the horses with his or her own eyes, or whether it was from a television program or something. I don't know.
I think probably the poet had. Don't know if that's going to be. No, I don't think that gives anything away. But yes, no, I think the poet almost certainly had.
Do you know much about them, Michael? The natural history of these horses? They're wild, like the
I don't know which Michael you're asking, but
yes, sorry. Yeah, but you are the resident naturalist, are you not?
Well, don't know about it, because I don't know how the horses came to live on the Camargue. I have seen them. They are very famous, and the poem does also reminds me of that film Crème Blanc, which I can't remember the director's name, about the boy who lives with the horses, and eventually it's a very sad film, because eventually, of course, he has to go to school, and the horses are going to be tamed, and he rides with the horse into the sea and drowns. It's about, but I'm sure, Michael, you remember that film. We've seen that film. Yeah. But I don't know. Does anybody know how the horses came to be there and why they're that special race? I really don't know.
No.
The thing I liked about the poem, or one of the things I liked about it, was it sounded like the poem D'Annunzio would have written if he'd written in English. It had that spirit.
Interesting. Yeah, well, this classicist style almost.
Yes, and linking it to
close observation. Yes,
vitality of nature, which I like very much. Steffi, what did you have any thoughts?
I have no idea.
But
so
no,
we're guessing.
No,
no. You're not expected to.
We're not guessing. That is a very
Stead's very afraid that I'm going to do that. I'm not going to do that. So.
Soteria is about the actual worth of the work. It's not a parlor game for people that don't have it.
No. I just mean that if you can ask yourself if you might be interested. Yeah. But what did you have any kind of emotional reaction to it?
Your face says no.
No, it's just a little bit of trying to understand, of course, also. But
yes.
Sorry,
No,
yes,
but
sorry, yeah.
I haven't been to the Camargue, so and I don't know how they came there. No idea. Yeah, but I liked it, and I like the horses. I like the horses good because I've seen them on TV. Yes, obviously, but no idea.
It is an extraordinary thing. If anyone who's been to the Camargue, this is still preserved, a very flat area of salt marsh, and these horses are completely wild there. Well, I say completely wild. I mean, I think are rounded up once or twice, but generally they're allowed to live their own lives, and it's a kind of island. They don't leave the Camargue.
Well, can I say something?
Yeah, of course.
I didn't get it at all until I looked up Camargue, and then I got the images of the horses, and then
so you haven't heard, the Camargue is the Rhone Delta. It's where the Rhone goes out into the Mediterranean.
Beautiful. Oh.
Yes. It is very beautiful.
Michael, en France, I hope you would have enjoyed it as I did.
I did. Apparently the Camargue horses, I mean, they go way back. They're related to some closely tied to Iberian horses and also archaeological remains that were found in Burgundy, but they're considered indigenous to the Camargue. And the Celtic and Roman invaders, when they entered, they first encountered them.
So it goes that far back. That's interesting. Yeah.
The poem was very familiar, but I remember it from the past, but can't make any connection. Don't know who wrote it, when I actually read it.
But you think you did read it at some stage?
Yes. This one was quite familiar.
But Janine, I think you're the only.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this place, and I wasn't quite sure whether the poet was speaking about real horses. Obviously, he was, but I didn't know that when I first heard the poem. I've never heard it before, but while you were reading, I thought of the difference between, I know this is weird, the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean. When they talk about Poseidon and the trident and the waves, I got the imagery of, and I've seen this picture a lot, where the horses are coming out of the ocean on the crest of the waves. The waves actually turn into horses, and that's what I thought the poem was about, were the connection between horses and the crests of the waves, where it talks about the foam and the going onto the shore, and almost like they're maybe attacking the inner part of the land as the ocean tide crests and then recedes. And I thought the imagery of that was really, really beautiful. But like I say, that's a personal reference, because Pacific Ocean is beautiful and the waves are just amazing. And but I have absolutely no idea who wrote it.
I suppose it's a good example of what one would call a lyric poem, in that it seemed to have one emotion. It didn't seem contrasting feelings that would at variance, or it was very kind of simple, a simple descriptive passage. Would anyone agree with that? It was the sort of poem that should have been in Paul Graves' Treasury had it been compiled much later, maybe.
I think that's accepting my point about the 19th century.
But yes, I think it's untypical or unmodern in the sense that it's not focused on the poet. It's completely objective. It's regarding something and describing it, and linking the classic to the natural, but there's nothing about the poet's feelings, emotions, fears, which is what you usually find, I think, in most poetry written after the First World War, in some way or another, or emotions or beliefs. So there is nothing like that. And so in a sense, I would agree with you instead that and it's unfair, I've got slight inside knowledge. There is a sort of intended classicism and attachment to the 18th century, I think, there.
But I do think it joins up with what you were saying Michael, about people writing but not reading poetry. And that is when you hear a poem that, like you just said, it's objective. We're not, the poet isn't saying, you know, and I felt rapturous as I watched.
Exactly.
And today, when people write poetry, it's all about inner stuff. And it's almost as if they're blinded to the world outside. So they don't write poetry about
Plus,
forces or
plus,
landscapes. They don't do that. They talk about my drug recovery. Or some personal thing that after a while people just stop reading
who
because
cares?
they'll be
You know?
bored.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who wants to know about somebody's drug recovery? I mean, there's plenty of that. This town that I'm living in, it used to be a normal place, nice place. You've got drugged out people, homeless, like you can't believe. I'm sure it's probably where everyone else lives too. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And I don't want to hear about it, you know?
Yeah,
So that's
not what you
you
want
know
to
what I'm
read
saying.
about. Yeah, well, of course, that's the
Yeah.
other issue as well, whether you want to read about depressing things because they're realistic or
right.
not. Or
Yeah.
But
And I think
all that's true, and I'm sure in the 18th century there was plenty outside the door to depress
Yes,
and
indeed,
was dangerous, but they didn't write in that way very much. That was very true.
Shall we finish this one with a rereading?
Would you like to? Yes, perhaps.
I mean, perhaps
yeah.
you might like to read it, Michael, as you chose it. That might, I don't know.
Yes, okay.
A different voice.
Sure. Yeah. Horses on the Camargue. In the grey wastes of dread, the haunt of shattered gulls, where nothing moves, but in a shroud of silence like the dead, I heard a sudden harmony of hooves, and turning saw afar 100 snowy horses unconfined, the silver runaways of Neptune's car, racing spray-curled like waves before the wind, son of the Mistral, fleet as him with whose strong gusts they love to flee, who shod the flying thunders on their feet and plumed them with the snortings of the sea. Theirs is no earthly breed who only haunts the verges of the earth, and only on the sea's salt herbage feed. Surely the great white breakers gave them birth. For when for years a slave, a horse of the Camargue in alien lands, should catch some far-off fragrance of the wave carried far inland from his native sands, many have told the tale of how in fury, foaming at the rain, he hurls his rider, and with lifted tail, with coal-red eyes and cataracting mane, heading his course for home. Those 60 foreign leagues before him sweep, will never rest until he breathes the foam and hears the native thunder of the deep. And when the great gusts rise and lash their anger on these arid coasts, when the scared gulls career with mournful cries and whirl across the wastes like driven ghosts, when hail and fire converge, the only souls to which they strike no pain are the white-crested fillies of the surge and the white horses of the windy plain. Then in their strength and pride the stallions of the wilderness rejoice. They feel their master's trident in their side, and high and shrill they answer to his voice. With white tails smoking free, long streaming manes and arching necks, they show their kinship to the sisters of the sea, and forward hurl their thunderbolts of snow. Still out of hardship bred, spirits of power and beauty and delight have ever on such frugal pastures fed, and loved to course with tempests through the night.
Thank you very much. Now, on to number 8.
Shall I reveal each poem as we go?
Yeah.
So perhaps, or at the end.
choice.
Perhaps. I think
But
last
maybe
time
at
I
the
did
end.
it after each poem, didn't I?
Yeah, that may be the best.
Yes.
Otherwise, we'd be sort of thinking about it and talking about it.
Oh, okay. That is by Roy Campbell.
Campbell.
Yes, he's perhaps best known for the Flaming Terrapin, which I actually got. I got a very nice edition of the Flaming Terrapin. Maternal earth stirs readily from beneath her blue sea blanket and her quilt of sky. I'm not going to read more of that, but the style is easily recognizable. This devotion to the classic, to this anti-romantic. Well, I would say perhaps anti-romantic, at least anti-personal. But yes, that's.
Yeah, well, it'd be good to look at.
And of course, a very close association with Spain. And of course, he
Yeah.
was, so I'm sure, well, I think most of you know, is a convinced Roman Catholic. Yes.
Or on to number 8.
Number 8, I would say, again, don't worry, Stead, I'm not going to sort of make any kind of competition, but I would just say that I think 8 is the least well known. So I would expect people at least to recognize this, but I may be quite wrong. Everybody's say, oh, I know this one. Anyway, yeah, well, who would like to? Louise, would you like to perhaps read this one?
Okay. Amateur witches and professional virgins, sirens and shepherdesses, all new areas of experience. I have been out of touch. Ladies, you are so many and various, you will have to put up with me for your sins. A stranger to your islands who knows too much. Your coy advertisements for bed and breakfast I take as read if I feel inclined. So easygoing am I through going steady, your photographs will never hang in my mind. With one ear cocked for the weather forecast, I come ashore to you who remind me, and going out of my way to take a rest from seasickness and the sea recuperate, the sad fleets of capsized skulls behind me, and the wide garden they decorate. Grant me anchorage as your paying guest, landladies, I've been too long at sea. When I sight you playing ball on the sand, a suggestion of hair under your arms, or in shallows wearing only the waves, I unpack strictly avuncular charms. To lose these sea legs, I walk on land. I linger till my boat fills up with leaves. With snow or sunshine, whichever I prefer, I see your islands as the residue of my sailor days, of this life afloat, my lonely motive to abandon you. Darlings, after each whirlwind love affair, becalmed in logbook and in anecdote, you have kept me going despite delays on these devious shores where we coincide. I have never once outstayed my welcome, though you all seem last resorts, my brides, your faces' favourite landmarks always, your buddies comprising the long way home.
Thank you very much. And that is an interesting experience for me because I have never heard the poem read before. And I want to say straight away, it's the one poem I had sort of doubts, but hearing it, I don't have so many doubts. Oh, I like that poem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I liked it. Yes, I've never seen it before.
Really, I found that very difficult to get purchase on. Michael or Louise, what drew you to it? What did you like about it?
Louise,
yeah, yes.
I don't know. I thought it was quite amusing, I suppose. This man, I assume it's a man.
Yeah, avuncular suggestion.
Talking about the landladies and everything. I just thought it was fun, yes.
And I would like to coincide with that. I think it's great fun. It's putting the classical and the banal together, the story of Odysseus, and I feel it reflects something in my own life as well. I think it's charming, but yeah.
Well, there's something, there's an undercurrent of ominousness to it, and it's almost as if he's appealing to these ladies. He's not quite sure how they're going to react to him. That's never seems to be actually ascertained, and it's kind of like a plea in many respects. That's how I
hadn't sort of felt that before. Perhaps could you elucidate a bit there, Mark? I don't quite know. In what way would you say it's like a plea?
It's uncertain to an extent on his part, and he's flattering them, he's praising them, but there seems to be a slight undercurrent of uncertainty on how he's going to be actually received by them.
That's a very interesting point. Yeah, because obviously it's about Odysseus, and I suppose there's the feeling of uncertainty, how he's going to be received by Penelope, how he's going to be received in Ithaca, how he's going to be received by Telemachus, and yes, yeah, that's an interesting point.
Heward, what are your thoughts?
Found it quite amusing. I couldn't really get a handle on the Odyssean theme, but it was a cheeky poem, and I enjoyed it as such. I wasn't finding, there were one or two phrases that were quite powerful. The sentence about devious something or other, I can't remember the whole sentence, but I haven't got it up, so I can't.
I'll see if I've got it printed out here. Let's see. Or it's called Odyssey, by the way. I don't. Yeah, it was something about devious. Where was it?
Probably about a third of the way in it, I guess.
Yeah, I remember it, but I can't find it now.
I mean, I can get it up in a minute.
I find it quite a lot sharper and more taut than the previous poem, which I found, if I may risk a bad pun, a little bit windy.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting point. Where is the reference to devious? Because I can't find it. Can you? Anybody see? Perhaps if you put the poem up against it.
Yeah, I will.
I'm looking at it printed out, and I remember it, but I can't see it. So perhaps somebody else will see it.
Odyssey.
Can you scroll down?
Yeah. Oh, on these devious shores where we collide.
On these devious shores where we coincide. That
yes. You've kept me going despite delays on these devious shores where we coincide. I do like that last stanza. I have never once outstayed my welcome, though you all seem last resorts, my brides. Your face is favorite land. I like it very much. I like it the more I read it. But I think it's a bit personal. I think maybe one has to relate to it in a biographical sense almost. It's a personal experience. And probably most of you don't like pop music, but isn't there, there's that song, The Broken Road, which reflects
blank faces all around, I think, Mike.
Yeah, sorry?
Blank faces all around.
Blank faces?
Well,
Carl, you know The Broken Road.
What's about what? The poem?
That song, The Broken Road. Yes.
I don't know the song.
Oh.
Sorry,
well,
who wrote it?
Well, who composed it?
Yeah.
The group, it doesn't have anything else that I really like listening to, and they have a rather strange name which I've forgotten.
Maybe.
But anyway, the song has very much the same theme. All those I loved were just a northern star pointing me home to you, which is of course entirely Christian, and they are a Christian group, incidentally, and it's the same, very much the same notion. And it's returning to Ithaca. I've always
an American group.
Yes.
You're not talking about two, that one with the woman, Kiss Me, you know what I'm talking about that?
No.
He's a Christian. Okay, yeah, okay. No, I don't know it.
No, I suppose someone could quickly look in Google or whatever. But anyway,
there were enough kind of meetings that end up in Google for
you're absolutely right, Stead. So we don't need to. But anyway, the point is, for me at least, the story of Odysseus is very similar to the idea of a returning Christ, and this poet seems to me to slightly go in the same direction. I'm not saying it's this poet I happen to know described himself as a skeptic about religion, so it's not religious, but at the same time I feel there is a kind of undercurrent there. But anyway, I think it's humorous. I enjoy it, and
I'll say one thing.
I've probably said enough. Someone else. Yeah.
I'll say one thing. It made a little more sense to me than the other one did, but maybe that's because I'm waking up. That's all.
Well, what time is it where you are?
Oh, it's 7:32 a.m.
Oh my goodness! Oh, it's 7:30.
Congratulations!
Right.
Oh, thank you.
Where are you?
Riverside, California.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Right. So, and Janina, it's 9
Well,
o'clock where you are, is it, in
It's-
Kentucky?
It's
10 o'clock.
actually, it's 10:30 here.
Oh, it's 10:30. Yeah.
Yeah, we have
When I
3
still
hours difference between
Yeah,
Riverside and Danville. But
Yeah.
I tell you, I really feel like I kind of missed the boat on this one. Talk about your puns. I thought he was talking that the ladies was a metaphor for cities
Oh.
and visiting the cities, especially the last line about your body's comprising the long way home. And it would seem to me that the poem is about the different ports, because he says something about the landmarks. If you raise up a little bit, you
Yeah,
Oh, very good. Ah,
and
yeah.
it seems like he's visiting these cities along the way. I didn't take it as like real women. Not saying that sailors don't like real women. What I'm just saying is that I thought that poetically they were a metaphor for the places that he's seen, because there's a kind of a melancholy about it. And I feel for him about seasickness. I have the same ear thingy. I can't ride on a boat very long unless it's a very big boat. But I mean, that's what I got out of it.
That is very interesting. And now it's suddenly talking about puns. I would think that landladies, which I didn't notice before, is a pun, because it's not just landladies who are offering room for dinner, but they are
Right.
land ladies, not sea ladies.
And see, your photographs will never hang in my mind.
I think it should be reread now. Unless anyone's got, well, I'm curious. I want to see if I can get it a second time.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Steve.
Michael, I think you should read it. Because it's your choice, and so if you don't mind, I will.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Odyssey. Amateur witches and professional virgins, sirens and shepherdesses, all new areas of experience. I have been out of touch. Ladies, you are so many and various. You will have to put up with me for your sins, a stranger to your islands who knows too much. Your coy advertisements for bed and breakfast I take as read, if I feel inclined. So easy-going am I through going steady. Your photographs will never hang in my mind. With one ear cocked for the weather forecast, I come ashore to you who remind me. And going out of my way to take a rest from seasickness and the sea recuperate, the sad fleets of capsized skulls behind me and the white garden they decorate. Grant me anchorage as your paying guest. Landladies, I have been too long at sea. When I sight you playing ball on the sand, a suggestion of hair under your arms, or in shallows wearing only the waves, I unpacked strictly avuncular charms. To lose these sea legs I walk on land, I linger till my boat fills up with leaves. With snow or sunshine, whichever I prefer, I see your islands as the residue of my sailor days, of this life afloat, my lonely motive to abandon you, darlings, after each whirlwind love affair, becalmed in logbook and in anecdote. You have kept me going, despite delays, on these devious shores where we coincide. I have never once outstayed my welcome, though you all seem last resorts, my brides, your faces favorite landmarks always, your bodies comprising the long way home. Actually, reading it again and again, and I see more and more puns as well.
Yeah.
Rascal Flats. Sorry, that's the group. Comes to me.
Oh, really?
Rascal Flats. Yeah.
Yes, I know them. Yeah.
Oh,
I know Rascal Flatts. Yeah.
Yeah, I really struggled to get a purchase on this.
Well, there we are. I can understand that. I would not be at all surprised or dismayed or anything else if somebody says, no, this poem does nothing to me, doesn't appeal.
it is curious. One recognizes it's well wrought, but one just can't seem to connect it with experiences that one has had somehow. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, a good choice because it has brought up different reactions. So yeah, thank you.
I thought it was also interesting to have those two poems together. I actually had them deliberately one after the other because they're both, of course, appealing to classical themes, but in quite a different way.
Yeah, I mean, what the first one, it just seemed to go down like a glass of cold beer on a hot day. That one was just much more difficult.
Well, it's funny because I could have written it down on a piece of paper and shown it if people didn't believe me, but I was very, very sure that you were going to like that first poem.
Yeah.
I would have been flabbergasted if you said, no, I don't like this, don't understand this. No. I just linked it to you very strongly.
I'm glad I have some determinate character. Thank you.
So who was the poet?
Well, it was Northern Irish. Well, he still is. He's the only poet I think on the list still alive. Northern Irish poet who's better known for a poem about peace in Northern Ireland, which actually the poem was published, I think, just a week before or very shortly before the peace agreement in Northern Ireland. His name's Michael Longley. And I have actually, I think, been at a poetry reading by him. Yeah.
Oh, really?
I do have his poems, his selection of poems.
And do you find his other work equally affecting?
Well, that's interesting that you say that because I keep saying I must read his other poems. Yeah. I mean, I've got his book here, but I've read hardly anything else by him. I keep coming back to that poem, but yes, it's a reminder that I really should read other poems by him. I've got it in a book. It's absurd, which is what I'm saying about how people never have time to read poetry.
Well, in that case, he's a good candidate for Soteria then to have a read of his poems.
If I'm sufficiently inspired, yes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with poems, one can just sort of photocopy them, copy them out, and we can just read them and talk about them. So I'm sure he'd be pleased about that. Oh, well, if he's still alive, we could even try and get in contact with him.
I suppose you're right. Although you must be a certain age, I don't know quite.
Well, I think
he's about 89.
So you know him or you know of him?
Oh, I just looked him up.
Oh, you just This is what everybody always does these days, and I'm always impressed because I'm so old-fashioned. I forget everybody has these things, and then they say, as Hewitt does, "Oh, I just checked." So my wife does that sometimes. Said, "Yes, he died in 1828." I said, "Good heavens!" Very naive of me. Yeah.
In that case, he might not. Well, anyway, let's. Right, now we have a German poem.
Now here we have a German poem. So I think Steffi.
Yes, indeed.
Obviously, as a
Is it in German or in English? That's the question.
This is it. The Baker's Dozen it's in German and it has my translation, which you will be very well comes afterwards. Yes.
Sorry.
Oh dear, so very ominous. Steffi's had the dubious privilege of hearing me speak German quite a lot, so she knows.
It wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad. Okay.
No, it wasn't that bad.
Okay. Yes, Steffi, was schlimm ist?
Was schlimm ist, wenn man kein Englisch kann, von einem guten englischen Kriminalroman zu hören, der nicht ins Deutsche übersetzt ist. Bei Hitze ein Bier sehen, das man nicht bezahlen kann. Einen neuen Gedanken haben, den man nicht in einen Hölderlin-Vers einwickeln kann, wie es die Professoren tun. Nachts auf Reisen Wellen schlagen hören und sich sagen, dass sie das immer tun. Sehr schlimm, eingeladen sein, wenn zu Hause die Räume stiller, der Kaffee besser und keine Unterhaltung nötig ist. Am schlimmsten nicht im Sommer sterben, wenn alles heil ist und die Erde für Spaten leicht.
Thank you. Yeah, and perhaps I should read by translation then directly because maybe some people.
Maybe Steffi should. It's not too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
No way.
No?
what is,
Yeah.
I don't care. Just forgive me then, please. What is bad when you speak no English, hearing of a good English thriller, not translated into German? In the heat to see a beer you cannot pay for. To
Ah,
have a new thought, which you can't wrap up in a Hölderlin verse, the way professors do. Traveling by night to hear the waves beating, saying to yourself, they always do. Very bad not to be invited out, when at home the rooms are more peaceful. The coffee tastes better and you needn't entertain. Worst of all, not to die in summer when all is bright and earth is light for spades.
Yeah, very understated, but powerful nonetheless. I think a wise poem.
A wise poem. Yes,
Yeah,
interesting.
the points are good. They're not superficially flashy. Yeah. Would you disagree?
No, not at all. I think certainly it's a wise poem, a slightly, obviously slightly cynical poem. I was relieved to find out that the poet died in August. So
Yes, indeed.
continue the humor. I thought,
I mean,
first of all, not to die in summer when all is bright and earth is light for spades.
Well, I've always wanted to die in a very cold part of the year, because as a habitual wearer of short trousers, I'd like to specify all mourners who may wish to come to my funeral must also wear short trousers as a mark of respect. But who knows?
Well, my mother used to say that funerals continued a tradition because usually one person caught influenza at an old person's funeral and then was the next person to die. But anyway, back to this poem. Steffi, what did you think? Because I mean, do you know it? Do you recognize it?
No, I have no idea. I have no idea. No.
Okay.
But yeah, a bit cynical, true, but also a little bit funny in some way.
mhm.
To see a beer that you can't pay for. I like that very much. No idea.
Why do you say it's cynical, Michael? I'm not sure I agree with you. I mean, why do you say that?
Why do we say? Well, I would say that there's an
Nice.
element of cynicism. I mean, first of all, to sort of these slightly banal things that you can't pay for a beer.
But
And
it's a real
then-
thing, isn't it? It's not.
Oh, it's real, but I mean, it's not as serious as dying. And then at the end, it's
True.
very bad to be invited out when at home the rooms are more peaceful and the coffee
Yes,
tastes
yes.
better. But worst of all is when you not to die in summer. I mean, that is quite cynical and funny, isn't it?
Not to die in summer. What does that mean? I'm sorry.
It means specifically not to die in summer. That is the worst thing of all.
Okay. Well, the
because
dying in winter
everything
is
is-
all that bad? What's wrong with dying winter? Or fall?
Because they can't dig the grave, because the earth
Oh,
is
I get it.
frozen.
Yeah, right.
When all is bright and earth is light for spades. So you can dig so that you can go swiftly and easily. And yeah, there is something slightly ridiculous about it. And I mean, you've immediately sort of sensed their car as all ridiculous, but I think that's intentional. I mean, the whole thing is a little bit ridiculous. What is bad? And then people would say, obviously, things, they'd say all sorts of terrible things. And he says, oh, what's bad? Oh, you don't speak English and you want to read an Agatha Christie. You haven't got enough money for a beer. I mean, this is,
I like Agatha Christie, by the way, Michael,
yeah,
but only the
well,
short stories. Sorry, I'm a short story reader.
Is that cynicism, though? I mean, it's exaggerating how bad it is. Well, clearly,
perhaps cynicism is a hard word to use. Maybe.
Yeah, it's slightly playful. I'm not sure what the word is to describe it.
Burlesque. I don't know. It's slightly droll.
Right. Yeah.
But I think, on the other hand, it's true, isn't it, that some of the small things can drive people wild with fury and disappointment.
Yes,
You really
indeed.
want, you've come to get that beer and the Fräulein has just pulled the pump and it's frothing, and then you realize you've left your money and today you'd have to say your card at home.
Yes.
I mean,
Well-
if it was in its first language was English, or perhaps English Irish, it might be entitled Murphy's Law.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, very good.
Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
Well, Steffi, got a question for you.
Yeah.
What do you enjoy? Have you been to the United States?
Yes.
Okay, have you been to
Long time
Columbus?
ago. Long time ago.
Okay, you probably haven't been to Columbus, Ohio. They have a
Yes, I
German
have.
city there. You
I
have?
have.
Have you been to the
I
Germantown?
I have been. I stayed in Dayton, Ohio for a year.
Okay, have you been to the old town of Columbus? You know what I'm talking
No.
about?
No.
Oh my
No.
God. That's like the whole reason to go there. It's incredible. It's a very old part of town and it's very German, you know, and they got a German bookstore there that's English
Okay.
to mostly. Oh, it's amazing. It's like you
Yeah.
feel, well, for me, who've never been to Germany, it felt the closest probably I've ever been to Germany in the United States.
Yeah,
So
but
put
Carl,
it that
what's
way.
the relevance to the poem?
No, well, the relevance to the
It's
poem
wonderful to hear your
is this is a
enthusiasm
German
for
poem,
the,
an English language. I'm American. We kind of, have something to do with each other. That's the relevance. I can
Okay.
relate to the poem that well. I don't relate to the poems, Michael. I have to tell you the truth. I'm not, my mind doesn't work fast enough. I can't relate to these
Well,
poems.
I think a lot of this, I think that's completely understandable comment, because with a lot of poetry, it's necessary, probably all poems, you benefit from reading it 2 times, 3 times, returning to it, thinking about it, looking at it again, which gives me a great advantage over everyone who's confronting the poems for the first time. I completely appreciate that.
Yeah. And the reason I talked to Steffi is it's the anchor to find something out from, get something from this, because otherwise it means less and less to me. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
But I
okay.
want to get some meaning out of it. Talking to Steffi, she has some English, German, American connection, and then I associate it with that. So somehow it means something to me. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay,
I
but
was
I
let's
get
keep
you may not get what I'm saying.
keep on the
That's
poem,
all I
I
can
think.
say.
I was wondering, Steffi, how good is the translation?
You don't have to answer that.
We have
I
the
know where
translator right
Michael.
here.
I know where Michael lives. Close enough.
But I mean, I
no,
just
no.
wonder.
It's let's say it like this. It's good, but I would have translated it differently.
which
Is there anything
in
specific?
part,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
part would you have translated?
So
differently?
Steffi, when Michael says that it's cynical, what do you get out of it when you read it in German? Do you think that it's playful? I mean, what spin do you put on it when you read it in German?
I'd rather say ridiculous. I like the word better actually, but cynical is just as well. So it's the what the meaning of the whole poem is okay with the translation, definitely. It's
I think a cynic is someone who has little faith in people's goodness or their honesty or lots of the established mores of the world. I don't know whether it's that, but I can't quite find the word that really seems to describe its quality. It's not ironic.
There is an irony.
I mean,
and
it says in the heat to see a beer you cannot pay for.
yeah, all right, but
I don't know.
The
Yeah.
strange thing, Stead, is that the middle 2 verses. He's traveling at night, or he or she, and then the very next section, he wants to be at home. So I mean, there's this juxtaposition, which one moment he's moving around and hearing the waves beating and so forth, but then he doesn't want to be invited out. He wants to be at home. And I found that a strange kind of jump from.
Yeah, I mean that statement. What's very bad? You're traveling by night to hear the waves beating, saying to yourself, "They always do." Is he berating himself for stating the obvious that they always do, or is that what's irritating him? Something that he should have known to expect. Because
Perhaps you could just go back to the German for that.
Yes,
that traveling by night to hear the waves beating, which was
see what
because it's nachts auf Reisen Wellen schlagen hören und sich sagen. Yeah, I think I got the meaning there, but
yeah, it seems.
I haven't. Maybe it sounds more serious in German. You've got a rhythm which I couldn't really repeat. Nachts auf Reisen Wellen schlagen hören und sich sagen, dass sie das immer tun. It's actually got the waves and a certain seriousness. I didn't really feel what Michael said, that there's an extreme, I mean, there's a juxtaposition all the time because he's making different references, different situations in his life. But I thought Nachts auf Reisen Wellen schlagen hören is like the beat of the heart. It's the pulse of life. And you just have to say to yourself, it goes on.
Is he finding it bad that the waves are making a noise, or that he's asked, that he's saying to himself that they always do?
I would say always do, that there's nothing special about it.
Yeah, I took that to be boredom. You go at night, which kind of like, oh, I'm going to the beach at night. It's kind of romantic. We'll be Burt Lancaster and Deborah Carr, and the waves will rush over us as we kiss. And then
so maybe there is a bit of cynicism.
What's the romantic and the reality is, there's this disappointment that comes with age. And then at the very end, as you pointed out, and quite rightly, the worst thing is to die. But I thought it was rather funny.
It is funny, isn't it? And he doesn't say the worst thing is to die. Like, the worst thing is not to die in summer. I mean, that's ridiculous. Yeah. It's quite funny, and
I think the more we look at this, the better it appears.
That's true of a lot of poems.
It's the epitome of disappointment, right? I'm dead, and they can't even bury me.
But he's also being thoughtful about the gravediggers, not wanting them to have too difficult a job. So that's nice. That's a kind thought.
Thoughtful about the gravediggers.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose that's one way of looking at it.
I mean, that's how I read it. He thought, I don't want.
He doesn't want to cause any trouble.
Yeah, which is nice. That's a good thing.
Which is also funny. Yeah.
And I think the statement about the waves, he is. It's bad that he's taking it for granted, because it's actually a beautiful sound, the waves at night, and he's not. He's just accepted it. And he shouldn't do. Maybe we should just. This is nice. Let's enjoy it.
Hey, that's an interesting perspective.
It would seem to me that the poet that wrote this was thinking like a person who is older. I don't think this is the poem of an 18-year-old. It's more like the poem of someone who's in their 50s or 60s and on, because after a while, these things are taken for granted because they're no longer romantic or new. Like I say, you get a new book to read in English, and you can't.
One thing.
I think, Janina, that is technically correct. I think this person was quite. I'm not totally sure, but I think the person was quite old.
One thing it will be hard to do is take any word from the poem. It's very sparely written, that's to say elegantly written, and if one removed any of the words, I think it would not have its full sense. It doesn't have any surplus. Whereas I know some poems one could shave off a bit here or there, but here it's composed of distinct thoughts which are concisely expressed and clearly expressed, which is a virtue. Any Louise, you haven't said anything, I think.
Oh well, yeah, I enjoyed it, especially the beginning bit. I've actually got a German friend who's very keen on crime fiction, and but her English isn't good enough to read English books. So if I mention an author who's not translated into Germany, she is often very disappointed because she'd like to be able to read it, but she can't. So that was quite funny.
You're speaking to her.
That is funny. Yeah.
You're speaking to her in German about this, are you, Louise?
No. She speaks English well enough for you know, ordinary conversation, but not. She doesn't read it well enough to read a whole book. Like, well, obviously not Agatha Christie, because that's all of Agatha Christie is translated into German, of course.
Yeah.
But some slightly less well-known authors that aren't, and she'd like to be able to read them. Yeah,
that is curious, because often it's easier to read than to speak. I think. I find it much easier to read something than the languages I can read fairly well, but struggle to speak, because seeing the word written, there's no issues with hearing the pronunciation and linking it to letters and words. So anyway, I'm sure she should have a go, and she'd probably be surprised with it.
Yeah, she watches English. She watches the television programs like Poirot and Miss Marple and Midsummer Murders and things.
Then yeah, she
yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, should we
yeah, well, so the poet is the poet is Gottfried Benn.
Yeah,
I say
he's not
a lot of O's and R's to that.
That's horrible.
Very unknown. Okay.
Michael, what's the last name on that? Godfrey who?
B-double-N.
B-E-double-N.
Thank you.
He's got some awful poems, hasn't he?
He has. You're quite right. And
oh
actually,
my God!
The one with the you see, you would have been dead against it if you'd known.
What do you mean by awful?
Well, there's one about rats that then get drowned.
Okay.
That they find
there's one very famous. I'd have to look that up. This is really strange and annoying and really, really. I can't really. I don't have a word. Wow.
There are some poems of his that I dislike as well. He was in a very symbolic in his younger days. The other one I like is Meinen Sie Munich, Zürich zum Beispiel wäre eine tiefere Stadt, something. But yes, not many of his poems that I like, but I do like that one. So, yeah, I do agree with it. And I think he when there are German anthologies in English with translations, they seem to pick on this rat one, which is not a good poem and is singularly revolting. And it's how they discover a family of rats in a corpse and drown the rats, and how all the baby rats are squeaking. And
I was going to say, do you have a word like morbid?
Yes, morbid. Yes. But of course,
God.
he was a doctor for sexual diseases, so I suppose he like Celine. So
Well,
probably
sounds more American than anything.
He's likely to be morbid.
Sounds like a psycho. Sorry.
I think we should do him the honor of doing what we've done with all of the poems and read it another time. Do you not?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
But Michael, perhaps you could.
I'll try it. Steffi can bear my. Well, she knows my German.
Yeah.
Was schlimm ist, wenn man kein Englisch kann, von einem guten englischen Kriminalroman zu hören, der nicht ins Deutsche übersetzt ist. Bei Hitze ein Bier sehen, das man nicht bezahlen kann. Einen neuen Gedanken haben, den man nicht in einen Hölderlin-Vers einwickeln kann, wie es die Professoren tun. Nachts auf Reisen Wellen schlagen hören und sich sagen, dass sie das immer tun. Sehr schlimm. Eingeladen sein, wenn zu Hause die Räume stiller, der Kaffee besser und keine Unterhaltung nötig ist. Am schlimmsten, nicht im Sommer sterben, wenn alles hell ist und die Erde für Spaten leicht. I made the same mistake as Steffi. I put heil instead of hell. Interesting. Yeah, when alles hell ist, which is when everything is light, not holy. What is bad? When you speak no English, hearing of a good English thriller not translated into German. in the heat to see a beer you cannot pay for, to have a new thought which you cannot wrap into a Hölderlin verse the way professors do, traveling by night to hear the waves beating, saying to yourself, they always do. Very bad, to be invited out when at home the rooms are more peaceful, the coffee tastes better, and you needn't entertain. Worst of all, not to die in summer when all is bright and earth is light for spades.
Yeah,
I like
good.
it.
Yeah, nice. Right, we're on to number 10. Michael, who is to
Who's not read? I don't know.
there's
Janine, I don't think you've read.
Biography. A life's trivia. Commit them not to the page, but to the wastebasket of time. What was special about you? Did you write the great poem? Find the answer to the question, when a little becomes much? You made war campaigning upon the piano that would surrender to the television. Were you the first in the race for the cup of silver not to be drunk from? You ran fast and came home breathless to the platitudes of the language. Were you tall, taller than you? Your best tales looked over your shoulder. There was an apple tree with a girl under it, loitering as though for you. It was not for you, but she accepted you for want of a better. Among scanty possessions, fear was yours. Courage you borrowed on short loan. Set up house for virtues of wife brings. Venturing abroad among the associated meannesses, you had all things in common. Were you mobile? So was the age. So were your standards. Cheering what yesterday was condemned and tomorrow would be forgotten. Turning left when you should have gone right to prove determination to be an error. And one came to your back door, all bones and in rags, asking the kiss that would have transformed both you and him, and you would not, slamming it in his face only to find him waiting at your bedside.
No, interested to know what people think of that.
Yeah, I don't understand all of it, but I am keen to try to. It's aroused my curiosity and it's engaged me. I'm assuming that it's a poet writing about his or her own life.
Yes, that's the question, isn't it? Is the poet writing about the poet's own life or writing about
human lives,
someone else or
general,
human life? Yes, I'm not sure.
Is it possible
sort
to
of-
scroll up
sorry.
a bit?
So sorry, is it to scroll down, you mean? Which bit do you want to look at?
The last part.
Yeah, sure. Is that
No, that's it.
oh,
That's it.
that's
Yeah.
it, isn't it? Sorry.
Could those 4 stanzas, please?
Difficult to get them quite.
That's it. I think that's it.
Just fitted it in. Yeah.
It's got a slightly Eleotic proof-rock type feel about it, hasn't it? And as it were, that Michelangelo's question is in the last stanza, would you be able to deal with an ultimate demand of needing this from anyone? It's not quite as ironic as do I dare to eat a peach and all that, but it's somewhat in the same territory, isn't it?
Yes, the eternal butler took my hat and sniggered, and that sort of thing. Yes.
It's like there's always a gap between what I hoped and intended and what actually happened.
Yes. I heard the mermaids singing each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me.
Exactly, yes, right.
Proof rock, yes. Yes.
Yes.
It
Yes.
has a certain colloquial sententiousness, which yeah, I don't find disagreeable.
So you don't find it
Disagreeable. Yeah, I quite like the way the sentences or some of them, may well not be sentences. The way the language is written, it yeah, has a pleasing quality to it.
the last but one stanza has a slight Vicar of Bray quality about it, if you know that.
I agree. Which indicates something which is
Yes, I see what you mean. Yes.
Yeah,
No, yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
indeed. The root of it seems truth, which is
Mm.
what should be the case with poems, I think, generally.
Hmm. Anybody else?
Yeah. Anyone want to? Steffi, Louise.
I'd see it as a looking back on one's life, and the last thing or the last lines like the death is knocking on the door, more or less. That's what I understand from this poem.
It doesn't seem to have much joy in the
No,
No.
not at all.
No.
regarding the past or thankfulness or anything transcendent. Yeah,
Is that death at the end? I mean, it could be death. Who is this? I came back to your back door, all bones and in rags, asking the kiss that would have transformed both you and him. And you would not, slamming it in his face, only to find him waiting at your bed's door. Yes, it could be. But then why would the person have to kiss death? Oh, that seems strange.
well, I suppose that means dying, doesn't it?
We talk about the kiss of death, don't
Yeah.
we?
Oh, indeed, yes. Asking the kiss that would have transformed both you and him, and you would not. So the person refuses death, and then death is in the bed anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, it's
In fact, this poem could,
unfurled somewhat, isn't it?
Mm.
Michael, what is the title of this poem?
I'm not sure if it actually has it. Can we scroll up? Has it not? It
Biography.
may. Biography.
Yeah,
Yes,
biography.
biography. Yeah, yeah.
But
Seems a good title, really. It's descriptively accurate.
it almost seems like a deathbed questions.
Mm.
I mean, if you were laying there thinking, I don't have much time. Let me think about my life. Kind of this what do they say? Life review, where your life passes before your eyes.
Mm.
And some of them become universal in terms of what people deal with, in terms of as their life progresses. You're at war, campaigning upon a piano that would surrender to television. So you're talking about incredible shifts of technology and the world moving on. And it says something about you looking over your shoulder.
Suggesting, yeah, yes.
And realizing that where it says you made the right turn or the left turn instead of the right, and it was a bad decision or something. It's on the second page. If you can scroll it up a little. Let's see, where is here? So you were mobile, meaning
There
what?
it is.
You moved,
Your
right?
mobile, so was the age, yeah.
Yeah.
So were your
Standards.
standards.
Yeah.
I thought that was very clever, isn't it? Were you mobile?
Yeah.
So was the age. So were your standards. Yeah. that's
See,
good.
cheering what yesterday, right?
Was condemned, and tomorrow will
And
be
tomorrow will
forgotten.
be forgotten. It's sort of like all the
That's a very
brouhaha we're going through
Yeah.
now about
Yeah.
transgenderism, and
Yes, yes,
100 years from now, nobody's going to even be thinking
yes,
about what happened back
I hope not.
yes.
now. And that's, I think, the conclusion that this person comes to is that when push comes to shove, you're going to die anyway. So really what's going on in all the sound and fury and fuss and feathers will be forgotten. Turning left when you should have gone right, to prove determination to be an error. It doesn't really matter where you go, right or left. You're going to be wrong. Sort of like the poem we just read.
I took the statement, were you taller than you? A way of expressing the sort of futile competitive
Mm-hmm. Utility. That's
really,
right. Yeah.
Yeah. This has given up some of its secrets, hasn't it?
Yes, yes.
Which is nice.
A stark poem in a way. If you saw photographs of this poet, you would certainly think that the poem is a reflection of the poet's character.
Can I ask you a question? How do you guys find the poet? I mean, like Janine, where do you discover these poems that you read? I don't read any modern poetry, you know? I mean, anything that's come out in the last 40, 50, 60 years, I don't think. But do you do that?
I mean, bookshops and libraries are good places to start.
Yeah,
but no, I have them, but I don't want to read them because I can't relate to the stories. It's only stuff I grew up with, really. I mean, or it's really well known. I have a very simple mind.
I mean, maybe poems are not for you.
I think that's true, but some poems are. So the greatest poems of the English language are very important to me, but and there are certain poets, but it's just a very few. I don't understand why, but it's just, I agree, poems. But none of these are really for me, so far. I mean, except that first one after looking at the pictures of the horses, which that meant everything for me after I saw that. Yeah. I mean, there are little things in here I like, but you're right. I'm not into this stuff. I'm really sorry.
As an American, you may appreciate Brian Turner's book, Now Bullet.
Yeah.
He's I think he was Iraqi or Afghani veteran. I can't remember exactly, Gulf I, Gulf II, whatever, but Mideast War. And his Now Bullet book of poems is, I think, more in keeping with the American idea of poetry that expresses both the inner person, but he writes about children strapping on bombs, and it sounds horrible, but he does a really, really good job of.
Okay, let me write that down.
Yeah, and his name is Brian Turner, and it's called
Brian Turner.
Yeah, and it's called
Got
Here
Brian
Bullet.
Turner. He's not okay. He's not black. I take it because I knew him Brian Turner once, but he's no, it's not the same person. Okay.
Yeah,
Brian Turner. Good. Thank you.
I think if we have a reprise of that, Mike, if you could read it, I think we can.
Okay. Biography. A life's trivia. Commit them not to the page, but to the wastebasket of time. What was special about you? Did you write the great poem? Find the answer to the question, when a little becomes much? You made war, campaigning upon the piano that would surrender to the television. Were you the first in the race for the cup of silver not to be drunk from? You ran fast and came home breathless to the platitudes of the language. Were you tall, taller than you? Your best tales looked over your shoulder. There was an apple tree with a girl under it, loitering as though for you. It was not for you, but she accepted you for want of a better. Among scanty possessions, fear was yours. Courage you borrowed on short loan, set up house for the virtues a wife brings. Venturing abroad among the associated meannesses, you had all things in common. Were you mobile? So was the age, so were your standards, cheering what yesterday was condemned and tomorrow would be forgotten, turning left when you should have gone right, to prove determination to be in error. And one came to your back door, all bones and in rags, asking the kiss that would have transformed both you and him, and you would not, slamming it in his face, only to find him waiting at your bedside. Yeah, so that is from Experiencing with an Amen by R.S. Thomas, one of my prized possessions, his poems. And yeah, what more can I say? Then, of course, the temptation to read with a Welsh lilt is quite strong. But of course, he was Welsh. very Welsh. Indeed, caused some controversy by his dedication to Welsh nationalism, but wrote in English like so many Irish and Welsh poets.
Yes, yes.
The next one I would say is probably the best known of all these. So I almost saw something else because people get to go, oh no, not this one again. So if that's your feeling, apologies. But anyway, it's also extremely short.
So your choice.
Well, no, who hasn't?
Hewitt hasn't.
Oh, Hewitt hasn't.
No,
Yeah, Hewitt. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Sure. I'd rather someone else read it.
Yeah, Hewitt. Yeah.
So I'm trying to. You've not got it up yet.
Well,
we've got the first. It's the first
I'll
line is
scroll
up.
as soon as you read it. Hewitt.
So it's the one beginning with a capital Roman 2.
Well, yeah, and it's supposed to be 11. Yeah.
Oh, 11, okay. Not waving, but drowning. Nobody heard him, the dead man. They said,
Oh, sorry, it got lost. Oh, something went wrong, Stead. Or maybe it was me.
What happened?
Well, I don't know what
That's a
happened to
great
it.
poem. It's real short.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think the poet would have seen the humor in that. He's gone. He's drowned. Yeah. I don't know what happened there.
I had to do another upload of this. We won't.
I don't know if it's you or Stead. Stead, was it you or was it me? Did I send you a blank page?
Well, let's just go on to the next one. I said,
well,
yeah.
I can. Oh no, I'm not sure I can. Wait a minute. I can probably read it if I. Well, maybe we just lost it, but.
Oh, I've never heard it, Michael.
No.
You said everybody might recognize it.
I was much too far out always. I was not waving but drowning. Surely, yeah.
No.
Stead, have you? Is it you or me? I mean, have you? Could you check? If...
I think I put something up today that that seemed to be fine. I had to put that disappeared.
Well, I'll read it because I've got it printed out. So I'll read it because it's nice to have the little bit of the humor to that before the last one. So if you just, I have printed them out, so I can read it, and it is very short. So, and it's called "Not Waving but Drowning." Nobody heard him, the dead man, but still he lay moaning. I was much further out than you thought, and not waving but drowning. Poor chap, he always loved larking, and now he's dead. It must have been too cold for him. His heart gave way, they said. Oh, no, 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 it was too cold always. Still the dead one lay moaning. I was much too far out all my life, and not waving but drowning. And the poet committed suicide, I think. Right, so I think, I'm not sure.
On a cheery note.
Yeah, the cheery note in that.
That's nice.
Is that, so that's completely new, is it, Jenny?
Yeah. Don't tell me he drowned. He didn't walk out into the ocean.
No. Well, I'll give it, in case anybody's sort of half there, it's actually a she, not a he. Any reactions to that? Oh, it's very interesting. Complete silence from everybody. I don't know.
That's Stevie Smith, isn't it?
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
So I think my mind was...
Would you agree with me, Louise, that is the best known to people who read poetry of the poems we've read?
I would have thought so. I as I said, I'm not much of a poetry reader, but even I know that one. Yeah. So
that's what I. Yeah. So
I would have thought people would know it. Yeah.
Yes. I think if somebody says I don't read much poetry, but I recognize that one, yeah, I think it proves my point. Yeah. It's kind of it's so well known, but yeah, it works for me anyway. I mean, this very obvious idea of the person. I don't know if anybody's been far out at sea with that horrible feeling, that your feet and you want to sort of wave for help. I have had that experience. I really thought I was going to die. It was evening, and I had been I was showing off a bit, showing what a strong swimmer I was to everybody. I'd gone far out to reach, there was a buoy quite far out, and I got there. And in the south, of course, it gets darker faster. And I realized it was getting quite dark, and there were the lights out in the bay. And I thought, oh, the lights are quite far out. And I started swimming back, and I thought, oh, my feet must be touching land by now, and they weren't.
Yes.
And I had this very uncomfortable feeling that I could be drowning. And so I could imagine this image of kind of waving.
I mean, that has entered the language, hasn't it? Not.
Yes, it's almost, isn't it, a kind of saying, not waving, but drowning? Yeah,
because as you say, it does identify part of the human experience very well. That horrible sensation in the pit of the stomach that this is serious and I want to do something, but no one is really taking any notice of it.
That's right. This ridiculous thing. I mean, there was a similar, very funny, I thought very funny, with Dick Van Dyke. I can't remember the name of the film, but he's mistaken for a hired killer, and he can't tell the killers that they got the wrong person, because of course then they would kill him. So he has to sort of play along with it. And he's with the killers in this car, and parked in front of the lights as a family, people he knows. And he's trying to signal to them that he's being kidnapped, and he's making these sense, and they're just waving back because they just think he's waving at them. It's a very funny scene. And it reminds me of that, because you think the person's waving and they're drowning, Yeah.
But I think it reflects, now that you told me that this person committed suicide.
I think she did, but do you know that, Louise, I'm not saying for sure, but I have a feeling, or am I just confusing with Edith? I'm not sure.
I don't remember her, Sylvia.
I may be wrong about that. I may be wrong, yeah.
Perhaps it's because there aren't that many famous women poets, I don't know.
A lot of American poets have committed suicide. I can say that. I do know that.
I don't know if it's because they live in America.
Maybe that's why.
That's pretty good. I can't think of any American, except Randall Jarrell might have killed himself.
Oh, I know a lot. I mean, Sylvia. Okay, obviously
Sylvia Plath, and that might have been who I was confusing with the suicide with Stevie Smith.
Hart Crane, Rachel Lindsay.
I thought that was an accident. Hart Crane.
Well, it's said to be a suicide. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about it. He was homosexual. I know that.
I know. He was run over by a beach buggy, I thought.
Oh, okay. You maybe know more. And then Edna St. Vincent Millay, she committed suicide.
Did she really?
We got a lot. Yeah, she did. I was told that by our in high school. Yes. So anyway, a lot have. I mean, God knows how many others. I know.
Oh,
okay. I mean, this poem reflects maybe how a pre-suicide person would feel. That they're waving for help and nobody's paying attention.
Well, I think, I think sensitive people do tend to do it oftentimes.
Yeah, and they sort of play the clown, whereas really they're in serious trouble.
Yeah, but I don't know how many British people commit suicide, British poets. I don't think any of them did that I can think of. I mean,
I can't spontaneously think of anyone, no, but I'm sure there are, but I can't spontaneously.
And then there's the awful writers killed. I think
they probably
no I got one for you, Janine, since you're American. Winesburg, Ohio, have you read that? Which is almost a poem itself. Anyway, what's that? Sherwood Anderson. That's the most depressing book I've ever read in my life, and it had a big effect on me. I read in high school, that sensitive year. I shouldn't have read that book. Anyway, it's a totally depressing book, especially for a sensitive child. So anyway, he had just desserts. He was swallowing a pimento with a toothpick in it in the canal zone, and it caused an infection that eventually killed him.
Oh, so, that sounds
praise
pretty
be to God.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm just being cynical there, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
No, I really don't feel that way towards people, but
Well, now I believe, Michael, when we first started the Baker's Dozen, did you not say that these were poems from your childhood?
But I think I mean these are poems I've known for a very long time. Yeah, yes.
Right, throughout the course of your life.
Most of my life, yeah, yes.
Dear people, if I will have to go soon, so if you want me to read a poem,
Yeah.
you
Well,
definitely
have
want-
you not read? Perhaps you'd like to read the last one. The last one also, we got a recording of the poet
So
reading.
I've got the recording up. I'd forgotten about
Maybe
that.
yes.
So let's
Because
listen to the recording, shall we? As
but
you,
has Hewitt not? Has everybody read one poem? I think they have, except Carl. Yeah.
yeah.
You stayed. So yes, by all means, this one is.
I'm not fighting to read it. If you've got the
We've got the recording, and the recording is
yeah,
very
that
familiar.
would be
I think.
technically easier if we go for the recording first.
Yeah.
Maybe
Mhm.
we can do that. I'll try and find that. And
See if people. Yeah.
yeah, it's my fault. I'd not remembered that there was a recording, and this can be a bit.
Well, if it's too much of a problem.
No,
of course
no,
you can-
just bear with me. I know that one's got to do kind of recorded sound and this sort of and the other. So now we can all see that. I think
Well, you've given away who it is.
yeah, well,
it doesn't matter. So okay.
now I think there should be something for recording. So, hang on, now if I do this, see if we can hear it. And I don't think we can. Shall have no.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Did everyone hear that?
Yes, I
Okay,
can.
right. And death shall have no dominion. Dead men naked, they shall be one with the man in the wind and the west moon. When their bones are picked clean and the clean bones gone, they shall have stars at elbow and foot. Though they go mad, they shall be sane. Though they sink through the sea, they shall rise again. Though lovers be lost, love shall not, and death shall have no dominion. And death shall have no dominion. Under the windings of the sea, they lying long shall not die windily. Twisting on racks when sinews give way, strapped to a wheel, yet they shall not break. Faith in their hands shall snap in two, and the unicorn evils run them through. Split all ends up, they shan't crack, and death shall have no dominion. And death shall have no dominion. No more may gulls cry at their ears, or waves break loud on the seashores. Where blew a flower, may a flower no more lift its head to the blows of the rain. Though they be mad and dead as nails, heads of the characters hammer through daisies. Break in the sun till the sun breaks down, and death shall have no dominion. Wow. Is there anyone
Is there anything one can
who
say?
can read poetry better than that
No,
man?
yeah,
What a
yeah.
voice.
Yes, yes.
It almost sounds inhumanly good. It was like a divine, yeah, a divinity reading its own poem. I mean, it was extraordinary. I mean, what? Yeah, I mean, for a Welshman, no Englishman speaks English better, almost. I mean, and it's a great poem, isn't it? It's a great poem. Yeah, it's and I think it's a difficult poem to read because it's got so many repetitions, and the modulation has to be done well, otherwise it can sound hackneyed. But he orchestrates the modulation so well, I think, and it does contain the truth of the transcendence of life.
Yes,
and that's what it's about, and that I
Yes.
think is true, and that's why it's a great poem. Is there anyone who has heard that for the first time?
Yes.
What did you think, Janine? I mean,
Well, I've heard a lot of Protestant Southern preachers, so his voice
yes, good
sounds
point.
like every
Yeah,
preacher I've
yeah.
ever heard preach a sermon. And quite frankly, I would rather read it than hear him.
Same.
Um,
Mhm.
because I couldn't follow it well enough as he was reading, probably because he was expounding, and it's wonderful, but I'm not quite sure what the context of his poem is. I understand, you know, death shall have no dominion about transcendence, but where and when did he write this poem? What does it refer to?
You mean, yeah, how did it fit into his biography and the
Because, well, when you put it up on the screen and you see it and you see the list of poems he's going to read, Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night was listed. And I think that's a much better poem than the one we just heard. So I was prejudiced right from the gate because I read the other one.
Ah, you see,
Yeah,
would you?
yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, you saw the name.
Yeah,
So
well,
Yeah, see, if we would have read it, I wouldn't have known.
we, you know, what all good rules should permit some
Yeah,
exceptions.
that was
and
good.
that was a good
Yeah.
thing, I think. Louise, how did you find it?
Well, I didn't follow it all that well, actually. I think
Yeah.
I found it a bit difficult to understand.
Okay, well,
yeah, so I think he's very difficult to understand in terms, almost shouldn't or couldn't be understood in terms of individual couplets or sentences and so on, because he has these extreme metaphors and similes that don't make rational sense. They're the poet's voice. It's very close to music in a way, I think.
It is broad,
But the
semantic
general,
speech.
I'm sure
Yeah.
you did have, death shall have no
exactly.
dominion. Good. My German spelled my English for a moment. Trotzen, the defying of death.
Well, he
Yes,
lived in San
the
Francisco.
life is a
Did you know
meaning
that?
beyond
For a
that.
while.
Sorry, Carl, what did you say?
He lived in San Francisco for a while. He did Dylan Thomas, and he loved San Francisco.
Yeah, he lived in America for quite a bit, I think.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
he died very
and he
young.
would love San Francisco at that time, but not today.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think,
It's a great city,
Right.
incredible
It's good.
city. I don't know. I don't
But
know if
why
you've
am
ever
I?
been.
Yeah, I think you should just try to keep to the poetry.
No,
Michael,
well, okay. I'm sorry. I can't handle it because I always go out. I go everywhere, and it's so hard for me to focus, especially on poetry. So I will try.
I know.
to
We know you
myself.
have a part-time job as tourist authors of a certain part of America. No,
Yeah,
I'm
sorry. Okay. I'll put it on mute.
Heward, are you an admirer of his voice and his works?
No, I find it bombastic.
Yeah,
It
is bombastic. I think,
element, the way in which he reads it is the way it has to be read, because unless you make it an oratorical exercise with the repeated clanging out of "and death shall have no dominion," it collapses.
But he read it like that, so I think
Yes, but what I'm saying is that's the only way to read it, because it's I mean, it's got a flavour of Yeats's Under Ben Bulben. What's the final line? Cast a cold eye on life, on death. I can't remember the final line, but it's an attitudinal defiance. It doesn't seem to me to have a genuine organic transcendence of death. It just faces you with death in various forms, and it says death shall have no dominion. For me, it collapses.
It's almost like we came in the middle, that there should be a preface to that poem. Did we hear it from the beginning, or?
Oh yes, we did. Yeah.
Oh.
Michael in France. What was your
I
reaction?
agree with Janine and I forget your name, Kat? Louise.
Louis, yeah.
I mean, I would have liked to have been able to read it rather than hear it.
Oh,
And I
well, we shall.
agree with Hewitt that that I found him bombastic. It's a perplexing poem, and it's just going on his word. Death has no dominion. I didn't find that he establishes it. It's more just an assertion, and fine. Everyone's entitled to making assertions, but it didn't convince me.
But I mean, isn't that true of all poems, that the poet is asserting something? They're not citing academic
Well, all right, go back to the Camargue thing. That was, I don't know if that was so much an assertion. That was
referring to the poet's experience of seeing them, and that's what he thought they were like. So,
well, he was drawing the connection between the actual horses and the foam of the sea waves, and that was I found that a fascinating observation and representation for the reader. But I don't think he was making any profound statement about life and death in that particular poem.
So it seems that Michael, Michael in Bologna, I presume you also found something magical in that. Did you not? I did.
Indeed. Yeah.
So we seem to be in the minority, which I wasn't expecting.
Well, this makes a nice change.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I think it's intense. Well, obviously, it's intensely religious. Everybody knows Dylan Thomas's poems are filled with Christian images, and to me, it is a defiance of all the sufferings of life, and is spoken with the enthusiasm, yes, of a preacher. I absolutely agree, Janine, that it has that, just as his elegy to childhood, Fern Hill, and this lyrical and this launching in, which is a little bit like John Donne, actually, this launching into a situation without a preparation, without a preface. Strangely enough, that reminds me of John Donne, who does the same. Go, busy ruling sun, why are you bothering me? And these poems.
My heart, three-personed God, etc.
Yes, but there seems to me a similarity, but it's probably a poem so much of feeling that if you don't feel it, there's almost not so much that you can say to defend it, because
it's like a piece of music in a sense.
I think it's musical,
and therefore,
yes, I think it's the closest to music of all the poems we've read today.
Some people just don't like Handel, and it doesn't, that's it. They don't like that particular musical voice, and that's fine.
Yes.
Well, if he had started out by saying, "Oh, death, where is thy sting?" or in other words, to give you some sort of frame of reference of what he's relating to. Did somebody, or Mom just kicked the bucket, I wish I wasn't here, or you know what I mean? But to just make a statement, and death will have no dominion.
I'm not exactly sure when the poem was written, but I imagine it was written very shortly after the war, wasn't it? And I think that was perhaps in people's minds.
Well, that would make sense. Yeah, okay.
But I think maybe it's in people's minds anyway. And to me, I don't want an introduction. I feel that it's "and death shall have no dominion" is the beginning and the end. But I think it's difficult, to argue rationally about a poem like that, because as said, I think very rightly said, it's like music.
Yeah.
It would have helped to be able to see the words.
Yeah, we shall. I'm just going to get them up.
Yeah, we've got the words. We've got the words, so they're coming up.
I have to go.
Yeah.
Could you send
a pity.
T.S. Eliot's four quartets are like music, but they're like music in a way that is intelligible, whereas I don't find the weave of Dylan Thomas. I do enjoy Fern Hill. I like Fern Hill very much, because it's not as arrogant. I find him arrogant in this kind of poem, as if by shaking his fist at the universe, he can change something.
Okay, Steady, are you going
Yes,
to put it up?
I'm sorry, I'm just
Ah,
trying to get where yeah, it should be up. I'm just getting it up. Yeah, hang on. Right, let's do that.
Howard. Oh, sorry.
Do that. Can we all see it?
yes.
Excellent. Right now, who? Oh, Michael, do you want to read it as you've read?
Okay, as I've read all of them, I might, yeah. And death shall have no dominion. And death shall have no dominion. Dead men naked, they shall be one with the man in the wind and the west moon. When their bones are picked clean and the clean bones gone, they shall have stars at elbow and foot. Though they go mad, they shall be sane. Though they sink through the sea, they shall rise again. Though lovers be lost, love shall not, and death shall have no dominion. And death shall have no dominion under the windings of the sea. They lying long shall not die windily, twisting on racks when sinews give way, strapped to a wheel, yet they shall not break. Faith in their hands shall snap in two, and the unicorn evils run them through. Split all ends up, they shan't crack, and death shall have no dominion. And death shall have no dominion, no more may gulls cry at their ears, or waves break loud on the seashores. Where blew a flower, may a flower no more lift its head to the blows of the rain. Though they be mad and dead as nails, heads of the characters hammer through daisies, break in the sun till the sun breaks down, and death shall have no dominion.
I still think that is just as good, seeing the words as hearing it. I think if a person has a belief in the afterlife, whether conventionally Christian or a belief in reincarnation, it resonates with that very, very strongly. And those sort of beliefs are very important. People will give up their lives for something that they think continues beyond it. So it does touch on these essential features of human life, which gives it its power, I think, and it's still there. And he just magnifies that by the strength of his voice and the clarity of his enunciation.
But you know, if you drew a line or erased the phrase "and death shall have no dominion," if you make that the title of the poem and you take out all reference to that except for the last line, I think it'll be a better poem.
Agree with that.
Because the internal parts of it are beautiful, right? About the flowers and the dead people in the sea, you know, the sea shall give up her dead, that sort of thing. But by repeating "and death shall have no dominion" makes it more, it clutters, I think. I think it takes away from the other parts of the poem.
Janine, are you generally not in favor of repetition in poetry, which is a common thing?
I am in some, but not this one.
Yes.
You know, I think there are lots of poems where there is repetition that is fine.
Something like the ballad of the lightweight dirge. This Nacht, every Nacht had I, far and fleet and candlelight, and Christ receive thy soul. And that's repeated all the way through after each stanza. It's very, very powerful. But because it has a living relation to the context, to me, it's the repetition of "death shall have no dominion" is just naked defiance, which is all very well, but doesn't have an organic living relation to one's sense of existence.
Well, on the contrary, I mean, it does if one is a believer. If one's a believer.
No, I don't think it's anything to do with that.
Yeah, well, if one has a belief in something that continues,
Because I
outside,
don't
then it
think
doesn't have any dominion. I
if
mean,
you say you read Hopkins's that nature is a Heraclitean fire and of the comforts of the resurrection, Hopkins is a profound believer in the resurrection of Christ and the incarnation. It's probably the greatest incarnational poem in the language, and it's a living thing. But for me, there's no
what works in a Hopkins
connection.
poem doesn't detract from this poem, which has its own.
I can't see
Well,
any
well,
expression.
But no, I mean, it doesn't work for you. That's fine. These things don't work for everyone. But what you're, I mean, I think this that the same death should have no dominion does reflect a theological truth if one is a believer in a certain dispensation. If one doesn't, then it's false.
I think the sense of the
It's a mere
repetition.
statement.
Yeah, no, I disagree strongly. I think that the statement is an act of defiance against the torture, the martyr. I mean, there's a very strong element here of the martyr under torture. And the repetition is, no, you shall not break me. It is the death shall have no dominion, no. And however you are hammered with the nails of the cross, the nails in the hands of Christ, still death shall have no dominion, for Christ will come again. So I think it's a profoundly religious poem. And maybe, just maybe, it appeals to the religiously minded and not to those who.
But
You're
here's the
making
thing.
an assumption there.
But he's got every right to make that assumption. It's an act of faith.
Not about me, he hasn't.
Well, that's why it doesn't work.
Well, then it doesn't appeal to you.
That's fine.
Well, we're trying to dissect what is going on in this poem, and I think the problem is that the death has no dominion is merely statement. It doesn't have an organic connection with the life of the poem.
Well, let's try this, okay? And start the poem from, forget about the first two lines, the title and the first line. If you just start out reading it, dead men naked, they shall be one with the man in the wind and the west moon. When their bones are picked clean and the clean bones gone, they shall have stars and elbows at their foot. Though they go mad, they shall be sane. Though they sink to the sea, they shall rise again. Though lovers be lost, shall not. Under the winding of the sea, the line. In other words, if you just take those, the first and the last line of each stanza away and just read the middle of it, then when you get to the end, and then you read, and death shall have no dominion, literally speaking, it has a bigger punch. That's what I mean. I'm not saying that it's not religious. What I'm saying is it will have more power if that line is left for the last. I think it strikes the reader and the listener as more powerful because it's the conclusion. And we've already got the conclusion if you leave it in there. But if you do all these things and then at the very end, and death shall have no dominion, I think it would be more powerful. But that's just looking at it, critiquing it from a literary point of view, not from a content point of view.
But it brings it more to life when you do that. I think if it can be salvaged, I think some of the wordings in it are not very good, but it's much more alive. It has more humility the way you're construing it, Janine. And as you say, the final line of "and death shall have no dominion" then has some kind of organic connection with the rest of the poem.
Yeah, I think this is all too rational. You're speaking like rationalists. This isn't a rational poem. This is a religious poem. And the religious poem involves a chant. And death shall have no dominion is like a chant. And this chant is repeated as an act of faith. Right. And what you are saying is you want some kind of pretty poem that has some logical structure. But I don't think that that's the emotional appeal of this poem at all.
Yeah,
I think it's
qualities of mantra almost. Yeah, it's mantric. It
yes,
generates something within by its power, and that is it's sort of irrational process. I think.
I think it's a bullying poem.
Well, I quite like it bullying me. I don't. It doesn't.
It's a shame. It's a shame the poet's not here to.
Yes, actually, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? But of course.
Yeah. I mean, Hugh, I mean, you generally don't like his poetic voice, Dylan Thomas. You're not. You find it rather tired.
I find a lot of the imagery artificial. If one was to compare it with something like Emily Bronte's Cold in the Earth or Thomas Hardy After a Journey, the nature of the entanglement of the imagery is so much more profound. I do find a lot of his imagery somewhat gratuitous, whereas as I say, I do like Fern Hill. I think that's a living poem, and if he'd written more like that, I would like him a lot better.
I did suggest to Michael we might read one of his plays, Under Milkwood. So if we were to do
I also do like Under Milkwood, because again, that is a living, there's living interaction between people, and it doesn't have that gratuitous quality.
That's interesting, because Under Milkwood doesn't appeal to me very much.
I don't. I'd like.
Depends on who's speaking. I heard Richard Burton's recording of it. It's beautiful.
Yes, I think yes, it is. I have heard that. Yeah.
Oh well, I think this has been these poems have ignited discussion.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and they prompt people to read poetry. I think, which is very much my argument all along. You know, everybody wants to write poetry, but who reads it? And
yeah.
I'd like to hear him read, Dylan Thomas read
The Telephone Directory.
The last one, Don't Go Gently Into the Good Night. That's one of my favorite poems, and I'd like to hear him read it. You found it on YouTube, Stephen?
I think a lot of his poems are on YouTube. Yeah,
I'm sure you can. It's okay.
Yes, in fact, Do Not Go Gentle Into That is on YouTube, because it's about the only poet that my younger son likes. My younger son listens to kind of rap music, so I might support what Hewitt says, but he finds that Dylan Thomas is very powerful and almost like a rapper, which is not actually as stupid as it might sound when you first hear it. It's actually quite, there's some truth in that, isn't it? It's got this
I'm presuming the black music is informed by the gospel-based tradition.
And this rapid use of language and this firing off and this repetition.
Exactly. That's not. We come from the same source. Oh,
but I do understand that people don't like it completely, but I feel that it's there like a prayer for those who want to hear. That's good, isn't it? It's there like a prayer for those who want to hear. That's very good. Yeah.
Good. All right, then I think we can maybe bring things to a conclusion. I think the next meeting we're going to look at a short story by Frank Harris, which I read and enjoyed to some extent, but had no idea as to its denouement. So we can read that and see.
We can, if anybody likes to sort of plan in advance, I think instead we got a Sunday for that, haven't we?
Remind me, because I might have to.
I hope I wrote it down. Hold on.
Change that. I don't know.
Oh, you want to change that?
I don't know. Just things are slightly. You haven't sent out any notices.
No. I haven't sent any invitations. So you're not. If you're not sure.
Well,
then...
just.
You tell me. If you're not sure, we can wait.
I was going to someone's birthday, and I said I would, but that might be changed to a Sunday.
That sounds very unclear. So you.
And what date did I give you?
I'm just looking. Hold on, to bear with me a little bit. Excuse me just a minute. I did write it down, I'm pretty sure. I think it was the 20-something.
I think if it was like the second Sunday, that would
No,
be...
I don't think it was. I thought I wrote it down, but I didn't. So if you can say
don't worry, we can.
for everybody said, but don't worry, I'll send out
There's
an
one
invitation.
Sunday that's convenient for you, isn't there?
No, yeah, there's one Sunday, that's absolutely right, which would have been very convenient for
Yeah,
me.
and I would
It's
try
in-
to. Yeah, well, let's try and do what's convenient for you. That's the purpose of things.
Yeah, but then I'll have to check and I'll send people an invitation.
Yeah, okay, no
Yeah.
problem. We can sort that out. We can sort
Yeah,
that out.
yeah.
But yeah, thanks everyone for coming, for
Yes,
expressing
indeed, and particularly
us.
new people.
Yeah, we're very
And,
good to have you, and I hope you found
Hope
it.
to see you again, or not, that you're not
Yes.
frightened away.
Give it
Yeah.
a try, yes.
Yes, and give it
Yeah.
another try then next time.
And good. I'm glad your voice seems all right, Carl. Nice to have you on. Well, good. Yeah, thanks so much, Ewan. Thanks, Michael. I'm sure you can hear us even though we can't see you. You're hiding behind the books. But, all right then.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Well, goodbye. Thanks, Ted, for managing everything.
Thanks.
See you all again in
Bye-bye.
a month. Bye for now.